Thank you for taking your time to listen to the Big Cat Lounge podcast. I'm KZ, and today's guest represents the state of Florida, specifically West Palm Beach. Dunbar is a diverse cat with a variety of Caribbean, Jamaican, and Chinese descent. He's an engineer, and one of his side hustles is Sportsinrush, and a part-time writer who just worked on a publication. We welcome DunbarNation to the Big Cat Lounge podcast.
Thank you so much. That's so cool. Man, I thought I was going to come down the tunnel. I'm like doing my own intro dance, like had the whole crowd like,
How you living out there?
Man, I'm living good. Just started a new job a month ago, and it's been going really well.
What type of work is it?
Same stuff. So doing engineering design for utility companies like power companies. So doing design on the power grid.
Okay. Awesome, man. So that really requires a lot of creativity, really, because like you have to come up with the plans and it's like you need to have the vision, really, right?
Yep. So it's pretty cool. How you been? How are you guys doing out there?
Doing decent. A lot of activity now more so than ever in Charlotte. I think just in general in a lot of larger cities. Even doesn't matter during these times. There's still construction. I'm right next to the hospital, so you're gonna constantly hear sirens, helicopters, police, and then you got the protests that come here and there. I don't really know what the schedule is, so I can't really anticipate. Actually, that's part of the reason I'm here in this in my SpaceX environment, is because if I was out in the open, you'd hear too much noise, and I can't do that if we're trying to record.
No, that's fair. It's like every 5 minutes. Like, hold up, we gotta pause for a moment.
Like I'd have to go like on mute. Like even at work, like I don't work here. Like when I'm working I'm mostly out there, but I'll have like it on mute. So if I have to talk, like they may hear sirens, but it just depends. I may walk around, but.
You're like, this Kyle guy, he's always distracted. Why is he always moving around?
Exactly. Like, why is he going on mute sometimes? I don't know if he's talking. Like, it's great. Especially if there's like dead silence, you can just like unmute it if like a siren's coming or something's coming. They may not know it's you. You can just hide.
Like, who did that? You're like, I don't know. My camera's off too.
And you're like, no one's really monitoring, the status to see like, when you went off mute or when you went on mute. Like sometimes there's no notification. So if you're really not paying attention, you could just slip that in. So tell us a little bit more about Sportsinrush.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Sportsinrush, it was like this idea I had a couple years ago. Because I love sports, I love teaching people, I love traveling, and I love writing. And I have dabbled in each one over time, but in this case, I was like, hey, what if I like created a website where I could teach people about sports? Because one of the cool things, like when I lived abroad in Ireland and in Spain, but more so in Ireland, they had these sports called hurling and Gaelic football. And they had this whole league called like the GAA, which is like the Gaelic Athletic Association.
Okay.
But what is that?
Yeah.
What are those sports? And I learned it when I was over there. I learned it a little bit over here before I went. And it was so cool. And so it's sports like that. And, you could find like sumo wrestling on there, and you can find a variety of sports that you may have heard about, but you may not really know what it's about. And I think that's why I really wanted to like build that site, is initially now just to have a platform where you can expose a variety of like popular sports around the world, but explain it in a way where I'm not throwing like 1,000 things at you at once and you're not like, oh God, I don't even care about this sport anymore.
Mm-hmm. So you're trying to keep it as simple as possible. So like, but yet it's very thoughtful, and you can understand it, like, like anyone coming, like, has never heard of it will understand what it means.
Exactly, exactly. So that's exactly it. So yeah, it's been good. I have like 15 sports on there right now, and hoping to continue to expand on it over time.
What type of music that really gets you going with your dancing? I know you've been all over the world, so you must have seen so many different cultures and different types of genres. So what gets you going? Like, what type of dance moves really get you moving?
Well, you had Adele on here on the like one of your earlier podcasts. So I love hip hop when I break out the few breakdancing moves I remember.
Hmm.
Um, I love salsa music because I like dancing salsa every now and then. But then you got bachata, merengue. You know, you got the Caribbean styles. You got reggae. I just love it all. It's just whatever the party vibe is. I just bring on that type of music, and I'll try to blend into that dancing style as best I can.
Yeah. How are you able to just like pick it up and I guess blend in? It's not that easy to pick up a craft like that. Some of the moves are not just like basic moves, like.
So yeah, so I mean, I think this is the most surprising thing. Everyone's like, oh man, like Dunbar is such a great dancer. He just dances to everything. But if you ask my family growing up, I had two left feet. I was the worst dancer. I thought the robot was the best move, and I couldn't even do the robot. I mean, I only had one or two options. I either accept I'm going to be a bad dancer the rest of my life, which it was easy to do, or I just try to learn. So I mean, in high school, I joined like a dance group when I was in like at my church, and then I eventually learned how to choreograph my own dance for like a talent competition. And then in college, that's when I really expanded, and I went to salsa classes. I went to a breakdancing group. I went to I had took a jazz dancing class, and over time, I learned all these different styles. But I think the one thing that really allowed me to be able to blend is that you keep it simple. You think of only one move to get like warmed up. Like one thing I like to do is just do like step to the left, like the Will Smith hitch, like keep it simple, like stepped, like do the two step, that's it. And then I use that to feel the rhythm of the music, and then I go. You know, I try to keep it informal, and then that's how I just let it go after
have
that.
you been during this time, I guess, have you been trying to create like new types of dance moves? What are you trying to do?
Oh man, it's been hard. Uh, Not really
Yeah.
during this time, because it's like once I start dancing, then all I want to do is be around people,
Yeah, that's the
and
thing. Yeah, that's true.
and it's hard because then I can't show off these moves. I can't really do much, so I haven't really been dancing as much during this time.
Yeah.
But I'll do a couple of toe taps around the house. Still brush up on the skills.
So since you got a passport and you've traveled all over, where are you trying to go to next? Or where were you trying to go in 2020? If you're trying to go 2021, 2022 next, like.
Yeah, where was anyone trying to go in 2020? Yeah, so recently, last October, I went back to Spain and I went to Portugal, and that was a lot of fun. Went with my girlfriend and a few friends. We just went over there for a week. And this year, I think my goal was possibly Brazil or Japan,
Mhm.
but unfortunately everything's canceled
Yeah.
until further notice. So I'll see. I mean, we'll see. I did go to Mexico a few months ago, right before everything happened.
Oh,
So yes, I so yeah, I try to keep traveling. I love exploring new countries. I love exploring different cultures. Um, but yeah, I don't know what will be next. It all depends on obviously when we can find out when things open up a little bit more. But
okay. Hmm. What made you pick Brazil and Japan? I guess you know you've seen so many different places, so now you want to see what cultures they have and what they have to offer, or any particular reason?
You know, so Brazil has always had my heart with, it has the combination of like the dancing, but the food and the culture, but also just the variety of landscapes there.
Hmm.
I think it's a beautiful country, and it's, I mean, and I know Spanish, so, and I've learned a little bit of Portuguese, so if I brushed up on Portuguese enough, I could get around a little bit pretty well around there too. Um, and I know, like when I was in Spain, one of the cool things is that I had Brazilians come up to me and thought, like they just started speaking to me like in Portuguese because they thought I was straight up from Brazil. So I was
Yeah,
like, all
yeah.
right, I gotta go there. That's a lot of fun. So
They already think you're a local, so it's like, yeah, why not? Like,
exactly. So
that's
yeah, no,
exciting. So you're able to be pretty versatile. It's not that easy to know so many dance moves, know so many different languages, because you're not able
yeah.
to practice it. Like, how are you able to practice it at work, or how are you able to remember?
So with Spanish, I like try to make an effort to practice it with, some of the cleaning people, or
Okay.
I practice it with uh, the kitchen staff. Like at
Mm.
one of the cafes at my old company, like, I was like, hola amigo, and like I would just bust it out with him,
Yeah.
just my order, but then we'll talk a little bit about life, and
Hmm.
then that's those little reminders allow me to keep it fresh, even if I'm not going that in depth with the language.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's great that you're still able to like apply it, because it's very difficult. Like sometimes people will, in school you're like oh, I'm studying this, I'm studying how to write it, and then you're like,
Hmm.
well, I'm just writing it, I'm not really speaking it or anything. I'm not, how can I really process it too much? Like, I don't know, maybe if I go there, maybe I'll remember on the highway, but I don't know. Like,
No, it's so true. And I remember like before I went to Spain, I knew Spanish a little bit, but I wasn't that good.
yeah.
And I my first month and a half in Spain, God, like I would have one day where I was like excellent. I was like, man, I'm understanding people. I'm actually able to talk back. Then the next 3 days, I couldn't understand anything. I couldn't say anything, and I spent like half my time like frustrated to the point of tears in my own like apartment there. I'm like, I'll never get this. But then you just, I think the turning point for me in Spain, and I think overall moving forward, was one at the end of like a month and a half there. I sat down. I was like, huh, like in English, I don't think every single word that I speak to even you,
Hmm.
and I don't think about the perfect sentence to tell everybody. I just talk.
Correct.
And if I make mistakes, people correct me. We joke about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
say whatever you want. I don't care. So I'm like, wait, if I just say whatever comes to my head when I talk to people, and say if someone, the part that I'm struggling the most with is listening. So the more I can listen to people, the better I'll get. And if I guess on what people say, sometimes I'll be right, sometimes I'll be wrong.
Hmm.
And if I can get more and more, guess more correctly more often, then that's going to get me closer to my goal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I guess what's one of your goals? Is that to like just be free of your time, and you can just do whatever you want with your time and control it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is one of my goals, is eventually be free to control my time, because we both, I mean, have pretty good jobs, and I love my job. But one of the things I also realize is, you know, the most valuable thing isn't money, it's time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you can find ways to eventually free your most valuable asset, which is time, you can then use it in ways where you can invest more in your family, or maybe invest in more in other side hustles like this podcast that you're doing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, just to do this, to capture conversations with friends and just connections, just to learn and really expand our knowledge, because there's a lot that we just don't know. Like, we only see a certain viewpoint because we weren't exposed to enough, or we didn't have the time to do that research or to watch that video. So why not just learn from experts and those that have done it and been there.
Exactly.
Today's sponsor is Anchor FM app. Go download the free Anchor app today to get started. You can find it at your Play Store or App Store. It's everything you need to make a podcast, and it distributes everything for you so it can be heard on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more. This is what I'm currently using right now to edit and record my podcast, and you can do so from your phone or computer. And the tools are really easy to use to help document the Big Cat Lounge journey. So what are you waiting for? Go today and download it.
Have you done a podcast before? Is this one of your first times? You've been on other podcasts?
I wish I could say that I've been on others, but at the same time, I could say it's a great honor that this is my first podcast ever.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for coming to the Big Cat Lounge podcast for the first one. That's exciting.
I mean, this is, I think, the stepping stone to stardom. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much, DunbarNation. You got to represent, right? I mean, you are really, I think one of your goals would probably be to have your own island, and then you call it DunbarNation. And,
I'm just saying, you said it, so you putting it out there. I'm going to go for it. I like that.
Hey, people are doing it, right? They're just doing it. They're just finding islands out here and they're claiming it as theirs.
Right.
So.
I mean, what, they're popping it for like 20, 30 million, some of the islands?
Yeah, that's just some place. So what was one of the things that made you want to become an engineer? Is that like something that started when you were young, just your curiosity?
Oh man, that's a fantastic question. So I would say that some of it was a mix of my curiosity and then my family, like, oh, you should be an engineer.
So they help guide you to kind of pick that career.
Yeah, my mom would nudge, like casually put newspapers in front of me and was like, oh yeah, engineering is one of the highest grossing like careers like over the next 10 years. You should probably go down that route since you're so good at math. I'm like, well, thanks, Mom.
Like, oh, I may consider it. Maybe.
I know. But so that's definitely one aspect, is family. But then the other thing is, when I was younger, like in high school, I was in an engineering magnet program. So I got to be exposed to it even like at a younger age. But then even outside of class, like I realized I was just taking random things apart. I would take the remote control apart. I would take my PS2 apart, and I would take the computer apart. Now, for better or for worse, some things got put back together properly, some things didn't, but it's okay.
But you learned from it. That's how you learn to process, like what worked, what didn't, and to really figure it out, how to solve problems.
Yes, and that was the thing. So one thing that blew me away is when I took apart the remote control, I took apart the computer, and I took apart the PS2. All three had these things called like circuit boards. And I had no idea what anything was going on with that stuff. I could like figure out a little bit the basics of everything else, but all the lines, all the connections on those things, I was like, I have no idea. And I looked more into it, and I was like, oh, that's like electrical engineering. The same thing like my mom and everyone was pushing down the path for me anyways. I guess I'll actually look into it.
And all the different types of roles, they've really challenged you, I suppose, right? Because you've had to learn their processes and try and understand what they're giving to you, and you have to really produce it.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, and that's where it all started. I say it started young, but like my industry that I got in was the one industry I actually did not want to get into growing up because it was so boring in college. I was like, who goes into power? It's so boring. But then I had two internships with a power company down in Florida, and it changed my mind. It was so fascinating, all the things that go into power from behind the scenes. And I was hooked from there, and I didn't want anything else after that. Mhm.
What would you say? You know, you want to go back to Florida? You said West Palm Beach. That's where you're from. That's where you represent. So how is
That-
it there? How is it? How is the culture there? Like each state I've noticed is very different. It's like they have their own vibe, their own uniqueness to it.
Yeah. So, if you asked me 10 years ago if I want to go back to Florida, I would say, nah, man, I want to go everywhere else in the world but Florida. But now I have, and now I'm like, I I would consider it now. I wouldn't mind wanting to go back to Florida. It has a lot of really good qualities about it, and one of the best things is the weather.
Mhm.
One of the other things, like you say, how different like all the states are, because you're from Canada, and obviously almost every state is almost like its own country with how the
Really, yeah.
cultures work together. And Florida, just South Florida alone, you could look at as like 15 countries. Because I'm from West Palm. We have a pretty good Spanish influence down there. So the Hispanics,
Mhm.
you got quite a bit full from South America throughout there. But you go to like Fort Lauderdale, and it's a huge Caribbean influence. You got Jamaicans, and you got the Haitians, and you got all these people there, which is pretty cool. And then you go down to like Miami, and it's nicknamed like Little Havana because there's so many Cubans, and there's so many South Americans there too. But you also see a lot of Brazilians come in there from flying into Miami because they love doing a lot of shopping trips there. And yeah, I think when I looked at one stat,
Mhm.
60% of people in Miami speak Spanish. Just a fun fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you really need to be well versed, you know, just to communicate and be effective there. If you're a business owner or just really anything, if you want to like merge with the culture and not like, you know, be separated. I feel like
Exactly.
a lot of times people feel like, oh no, I can't speak to them because you know I don't feel comfortable. It's just like sometimes it presents like awkward moments.
Right. So how was it like growing up in Canada? Was it similar to how it was the US where certain parts, or was it even if you like no matter what city or town you went to, it was pretty similar?
I mean, I grew up there half my life till I was 15, so it was kind of tough. I didn't explore too much, but
Right.
each city really had their own uniqueness to it. So I was in Brampton, and
Hmm.
Brampton's more like Brown Town actually. It's like a lot of people from India, Pakistan, you name it, like everywhere in Asia, you name it, and they come to Brampton and they don't have to really learn English really. They come and they stay there with their uncles, their aunties, and they don't need to learn English because like their convenience store is where everyone who came from their country you know, and they run that whole convenience store, so they don't need to ever speak English at all. They can speak Arabic, Urdu, you name it. They don't need to speak English. So like it's interesting trying to enforce things when people are just like, I'm not going to speak English. There's no need. I'm in Brampton. I'm in where my hometown is. Like, we're good out here. I'm like, well, you know, it's kind of important. Like English is kind of important. I feel like, uh, you know, U.S. they're really stressing that, and like Britain and some countries they really stress like English. You know, should be you know top. You should try and understand a little bit, like especially if someone's gonna like tell you what to do. You just kind of know. Area and Toronto, it's
Hmm.
really diverse. Every type of culture you can name, you'll find everywhere. It's unique. It's unique. I think you know Canada accepts so many immigrants every year, so many, and they don't really you know. Canada's like you know you can accept we can accept you, but you can't just come to Toronto. There's other Canada's big. So it's like second largest you know size landmass Canada is. So it's like you know there's other areas that are needing you know human capital, are needing people to come and do certain tasks. So we need you need to spread it out, but it's
I,
difficult because Canada can be cold. You know, very cold temperatures, and it's a different climate. If you're coming from Asia, some parts of Asia, you're coming from Africa. I mean, it can get cold, but sometimes not like that. It's like Arctic cold. It's a different level. So it's different, it's different. And like, yeah, you're like, oh, I'm in Canada. I was able to immigrate here. But then you're like, oh, I need to get a couple winter jacket coats. I got to make sure I don't go outside too long. Otherwise, I may get frostbite. I might freeze. Like, people don't really understand, I think, that come over like the drastic changes in climate. Because Canada would have snow like I think they just had it in May. At least a lot of the areas that were having it early in May. So it can really just depend, it's all over.
Nah, man. We already have issues like that already in Chicago, so I couldn't even think of going more north.
How long do you think you're gonna stay in Chicago for?
The $1 million question, I don't know. Like I've been here, like when I originally came to Chicago, I thought, man, I'll be here for maybe 2-3 years, and then I'll, probably look elsewhere. And now I've been here 6 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and I love it here. I do enjoy it a lot. So I say at least 2 more years at least, but who knows? Because I didn't expect to be here past 3 years, and now here I am 6 years later.
And where are some of your favorite spots in Chicago? Like, where are you trying to move to next? Your lease is gonna be up or anything? So you're trying to see a different side of Chicago, or?
So I just resigned, and I'm up in Logan Square. I love, like, Logan Square is nice. It's building a lot though. There's a lot building. So we'll see. We'll see how the next year goes. Cause I'm living here and I'm like, dang, like I don't remember this here like a month ago, but here it is. So it's cool. I like the area. I've always loved it, but we'll see what happens the next year if I do decide to stay in Chicago, if I end up bouncing to another area or if I stay in this area again. But there's a lot of cool spots in Chicago. I mean, obviously the news captures the rough part and the negative portions of Chicago, but there's a lot of beautiful things about Chicago that I think gets lost in the news.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's difficult. It's just like what the media wants to portray. And unfortunate things do happen everywhere, but sometimes it has to do with the spotlight. It's just there wasn't much going on that day, so we had to highlight this whatever happened here. I mean, it's really it's highlighted every day if you look at it, but it's just who decided to cover it, who decided to share with it. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
But yeah, no. So to answer your question, I don't know.
Well, with engineering, that's a pretty interesting field. It's not just limiting you to one thing. It's pretty vague. You can pick anything. So there's so much opportunity. Don't you think you could find something working remotely? I mean, you'd need to get the requirements and certain things like that. You could still have interaction right now like we are. I mean, you'd still get the same type of information. You may be losing some stuff, but I think it's possible. Have you looked that route or anything?
So yes, I've always looked into that. I mean, obviously the pandemic has had a lot of negative things that have happened, but I think one of the big positives that has happened is, especially in my industry, is that it is not only forced us to be able to work from home, but it has encouraged people in my industry to say, hey, you guys can work from home and you guys can be productive. And we're like, yes, like it's not that big of a deal. Like, so I think that's one of the things that I look forward to seeing in the next year and two, is to see what is the effect that happens not only in my industry, but in other industries that were pretty conservative for engineers, and seeing if they become more flexible with allowing all types of work, but more importantly, engineers be able to work from home, because we've traditionally have been like us, like we were always required to come to the office no matter what, and they're like, no, we don't really want you to work from home because we feel like you wouldn't be productive, but we've been really productive. And like I think they shared some of the economics from my company, and we're doing pretty good. So it's cool to see that the mindset of that is changing. So I'm hoping that when like people, like if I come and say, hey, can I work from home today? Uh, that will be a more common thing where they're more comfortable with that rather than it being like a tug of war, like, well, you're really like trying to distract from the company and all this, like it's an argument.
Yeah.
So so to answer your question, yeah, I think that is something now I look for, and I try to strive to ask like what their mindset is on that, because I think that's something that more and more companies have to be comfortable with allowing their employees to do.
hmm And same with me. I work in the banking and financial industry, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you would be required come in suit and tie, come into the office, and then if you do have to work from home, I mean, you have some leeway, but you have to have like an appointment, doctors. I mean, if you have children, you can, but it's always like you'd have to be like, I gotta do this. Like you can't just. I'm trying to work
Yep.
from home. I'm still gonna be productive, but I'm trying to work from home. Oh, not allowed. Not allowed. Can't do that. I think now, like, it's really become more transparent. Like, it's exposed a lot of people that weren't efficient in the office and like weren't communicating and were just like, not doing any work. And then like someone would find out like 2 weeks later. Like now everyone's like, well, I gotta check up. Like, what are you actually doing? What are you doing? Like, where before, you'd have a group and everyone would be in the meeting room, so you just be like, okay, I think they understand what's going on, but you wouldn't really like do a one-on-one and check up and be like, did you really get it? Did you understand?
That's actually one of the things that I do enjoy. Like not this company, because this company is actually pretty good about it. My previous company, one of the things is like I know like a meeting here or there where they kept like one or two people behind. Like, hey, you stay on the call too. And I'm like, oh God. I know because it's exactly that where it's like, so what's really going on? Why is this taking too long? What do you really understand what needs to get done? Those kinds of conversations. But I think, like you said, it's good because it allows things to be more transparent. And you can't really hide behind a group and say, oh, it's because I was waiting on this from this person. It's like, well, from everything I saw on the emails and everything I saw with like you even replying to them and to me, you had everything. So what's going on?
Yeah. We were sharing the screen and you were multitasking and I saw the pop-up with the notification. Like I know I'm gonna be nice, but I know you saw it. I also had the read unread check, No, I'm just kidding.
Yo, people do that, but I'm like, nah, I couldn't do it. It would be too much. I have to like give people the benefit of doubt, and then if you do like see the email, I even follow up with you and you're good, and then you don't do it, then I'll probably be more micromanagey if I have someone I'm working with. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I try to give people the benefit of doubt.
Likewise. Well, thank you so much, Dunbar, for coming to the Big Cat Lounge podcast. If people want to find out more about you, where can they look?
Well, just like we've been talking about, you got DunbarNation on Twitter, the Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on that LinkedIn. You hit me up. I got you.
Thank you so much, Dunbar, for coming to the Big Cat Lounge podcast.
No problem. Thank you so much.
We are accepting applications if you think you have what it takes to be a big cat and be a guest on the show. Email us at bigcatlounge@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the Big Cat Lounge podcast. Hope to see you soon.